Is being anxious a sin? Is being anxious a sin?
Yeah.
What do you think? What would you say to
Yes.
that?
Is being anxious a sin? And my first answer would be no. I
Mm.
don't think being anxious is a sin. When you look at scripture, the number one most repeated command in scripture is do not be afraid. And a lot of times when we hear the commands as scriptures, we might immediately think, oh, so being anxious is a sin, being afraid is a sin. But I actually think that that command is actually an encouragement. It's like God coming to us saying, listen, dear friend, dear loved one, dear beloved, don't be anxious. And what it presupposes is that we are anxious, that we are fearful. It's a part of what it means to live life here in a broken and a fearful world. And in fact, I actually think a healthy dose of fear and anxiety is probably a good thing to navigate life in a broken world. I want my kids to be fearful of running out into traffic. I want my kids to be fearful of touching a hot stove and getting burned. So there is a good physiological and spiritual emotional dynamic that fear and anxiety plays. Now, here's where anxiety or fear can become sinful, though, is when in that anxiety and in that fear, we lose faith and trust in God. So, almost everywhere in scripture where you see a command and encouragement to not be anxious, there's always attached to it a promise of God's presence. So, in Philippians 4, it says, Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything. Or in Isaiah 48, it says, Fear not, for I am with you. So, where anxiety and fear can turn sinful is when we doubt God's presence and promises in our life. And when we try to deal with that anxiety and fear in our own way, maybe through man made mechanisms, maybe through different sins or temptations that we give into. But for all of us, anxiety and fear is like breathing. It's just a part of who we are. It's a part, I think, of what it means to live life here in a broken world. So at the very beginning, I don't think it's sinful, but I think it becomes sinful over time when we lose that faith and trust in God's promises and in God's presence.
Yeah. I love those passages. I love the do not fear and that it always comes with a promise.
It does.
Those are great ones. Those would be great ones if you're listening to write on a card or to screenshot and make your background or something like that. So look up those because I think that combination of don't be afraid. Why? Don't just tell people like, don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. No one likes that. None of us want to hear that.
No one does.
But if we hear, don't be afraid because of this. You don't have to be afraid of this because, and the ultimate, thing is that like, don't be afraid because God is with you.
Right.
Don't be afraid. He's
Right.
with you.
Right.
And letting that calm us in a way that's not just like a pretend way, but in a real way in our life.